So anyway, so we are here. Thank you so much for listening and welcome. I have the distinct pleasure of being in a space here with two amazing men that have been doing a lot of incredible work for the Rocky Linux Foundation. So I know that Rocky Linux is out there doing amazing things. And if you were listening, you probably know what Rocky Linux is. If you don't, go to rockylinux.org and check it out. It is the best open source operating system on the planet. Not that I am biased or anything like that, but let's actually introduce ourselves here. So I'm going to go with Stack first. Why don't you say hello and tell our audience who you are and what your relationship to Rocky Linux is?
Sure. I am Stack. I have been working with Linux since I first got introduced to it late 90s, early 2000s. I pretty much made it my primary OS. Didn't really use anything else. Was introduced into high performance computing about 2003, where I just absolutely fell in love with it, and I've been using it ever since. So that is primarily my day job, is high performance computing, and in my free time, I deal with a lot in open source world. Rocky is probably one of the bigger projects I've ever worked on with any regular frequency. And for Rocky, I have been a part kind of since the early beginning when I first talked to Greg, and he said that he was doing this new thing. I was like, yeah, I want to be a part of it. I pretty much just lurked until I think it was about like, yeah, so fairly early on, I got pulled into the testing team. I've been helping out since then as a team lead, and a lot of what we do, and by we, I mean the testing team itself. We've got a few core guys that are just incredible in everything that they're doing. So big shout out to Trevor, Lucas, Al, and Alan, who do a lot for the testing team. And we want to make sure that what we release is solid, that any of the regular frequently reported bugs, any of the problems that have had in the past, all of that has been fixed and resolved, and that we aren't releasing a known broken product. We want it to be a smooth experience for our end users. We know that most of them are in the enterprise space, and so they really count on having that stability. So we looked early on at how a lot of other projects were doing their testing. I'm not saying any one of them is wrong for doing it, but we looked at some of the shell scripts that people wrote and we thought that's too basic. We looked at some of the Kickstarter scripts that were used and thought that doesn't really cover a lot of the use cases of people installing graphically, for example. We wanted to see what others were doing, and we ended up kind of following Fedora lead and OpenSUSE lead, and we went with a product called OpenQA. And this allows us to do a lot more thorough testing. When we come to a release week, we have a playbook inside of our Mattermost, which we use quite often. And that Mattermost playbook has a list of tasks that we accomplish. And it's hundreds of tasks long of things that we want to check and verify across each one of the architectures that we support. And these tasks are open for anybody to help contribute to. We have things as simple as being able to check that, make sure that an ISO boots, all the way up to some more difficult things that you need to be kind of involved with the OpenQA project. But we're always looking for more people to come and help us with the testing and to get involved. We've got a lot of things that are set up for those that are coming in new and wanting to learn how to do things and to be able to contribute in some way. And we always recognize those people, and we make sure that their names are on the release as having contributed.
Oh, wow, that's cool. I wasn't actually aware of that. So you mentioned the Mattermost server and Rocky Linux on the Mattermost server, and you guys can just kind of like go Google that if you're not familiar with it. Is that really the best place for people that are interested in jumping in and want to be not only part of the community, but know more about what's going on?
So we try to have a lot of presence on different social media, and we have forums for asking questions. So there's a lot of different ways of getting in contact with us, but chat.rockylinux.org is by far the best place to get involved with the community. We have IRC bridges for those that prefer IRC for most everything, but especially on release weeks. All of that happens inside the playbook, which happens inside of the Mattermost.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Okay, so we also have another amazing Rocky Linux member here, Mr. Skip. All right, Skip, why don't you unmute and pop in and introduce yourself?
Hey, so my intro is not that cool. I am Skip Ruby. I've been with the Rocky Linux project since really the beginning. I work on the release engineering team. I'm a package monkey. If I have to describe my role, that's what I do. Um, Troubleshooting packages, building packages, dissecting them, all kinds of stuff. Um, yeah, and like Mr. Stack here. I've been um, Linux user for a long, long time since the 90s, and have floated around. I got involved in Rocky Linux because I was a big fan of CentOS. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
And been a long time Red Hat and Red Hat compatible administrator as a job, and yeah, just happy to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you both for being here. We want to talk about the most recent release that Rocky has put out into the world, and that is going to be Rocky 8.9 as well as 9.3. So, how about you give us a brief overview of how you think that went?
I think it went well. There's always things that we can take away and do better, and we've got a list of some of those things that I have on my personal to-do list for how we can improve the testing process next time. But
Mm.
overall, the testing went really well. As I said before, we've kind of got a very involved process, so it sometimes takes longer for us to go through so many different things and so many different checks. But especially when there's so many things going on with holidays in the U.S.,
Mm.
supercomputing being a big deal for a lot in our community. Having two releases during this time can often be crazy and chaotic, but our team handled it really well. We are volunteers, and so at least the testing team is all volunteer based, and when we work on it, we work on it when we can. And so it's slow going at times, but it was really good being able to just not worry about it too much because I had such a good group of people that I knew were working on it and making progress.
Did you want to add anything to that, Skip?
Yeah, I'll chime in from the build side. The build side went as well as could be expected, and it's been getting better. I'll be honest, the build side has had some rough releases in the past where there's been a lot of late nights and a lot of, oh crap, we've got to rebuild all 50 of these because we, screwed up the order or something. And yeah, and I love the robust testing process. Thank you, Stack, because it it catches things like that, which is great. Um, I want to shout out one of the really cool things that was not my idea. And our Lewis, our head of release engineering, is now we have a pre-build almost where we track CentOS Stream, which is runs 6 to 12 months ahead of Rocky Linux and RHEL, and it's fantastic. It really effectively most of the things that were released in 8.9 and 9.3, we know we can build them because we already built them, right? Which is fantastic, and it helps really smooth the whole process over. Um, yeah, that's it was. It's always a ride doing these releases. There's a lot that goes into them. Um, Even I always tell people, oh yeah, it's just it's the Rocky. For I hope everyone knows by now is a Red Hat Enterprise Linux clone. Like we use the same source code and such, and you'd think it would be easy if it, and it's surprising how difficult it is to build a Linux distro, even if you don't have that many code changes, right? So, yeah, very happy with the result.
So that actually goes into my next question. Like, how much time in between RHEL's release of 8.9 and 9.3, let's start with 8.9, and then Rocky Linux's release of 8.9, like how much lag time was there?
I'll take that one here. I can get you a ballpark number. Let me pull up my web browser while we're talking. I believe it was about 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half between, and Stack, correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds right in my head, from the RHEL 9.3 release date to the Rocky 9.3 release date, and less for 8.9, I believe. Sorry,
Yes.
that's my dog.
Yes, I would say it was about a week and a half. We had opportunities to push it out sooner, but timing on that would not have been great for a lot of sysadmins. We didn't want to do a late night Friday drop or anything crazy like that. So we purposely held out for that Monday release, and we wanted to make sure that we had everything right and in order. So it gave us a little extra buffer room, knowing like, okay, we've done all the heavy testing, we've done all the checks, things are looking great. These are all would like to haves, but are not required for release, and we can work and do these, knowing that we're ready for that. So, there's a little extra time on there, just because we were thinking about the sysadmins. But yes, I think it was about a week and a half.
Yeah, that's awesome, you guys, because I mean, just like you were saying, it's an incredible amount of work. So thank you. Right. I mean, it's not unthanked work, because there's lots of people who are thanking you all the time for the work that you were doing, but it is, technically unpaid work. Right? So, thank you again for your time and patience with that. So that lag time, so it's about a week. Is that like a comfortable space? A week and a half is kind of what you can imagine looking into the future that we can expect on each of the releases, and that's about every 6 months. There's another release. Is that accurate?
Yeah, obviously we want. I'm gonna step in for a second, Stack, if you don't mind. Obviously, we want to release as soon as possible, but really, I would say, um, quality over speed, right?
Yeah.
There is a high degree of, I don't want to call it paranoia, but the entire Rocky team really values um, a coherent working product, working distro, and we really do not want to, we're I've seen this team, especially testing and release engineering, bend over backwards when something is wrong, even a little thing that most people wouldn't notice, right? But there are things that, I can see other teams, certain companies out there saying, "Oh, we'll just fix it, next week and release it now or whatever." But it's part of that is it's nice to have an open source project. There's no, there's no payroll, there's no like revenue issues or anything like that. So it's we'll release it when it's ready, when it's complete. Having said that, we want to close that gap as much as possible, do it as quickly as possible. But yeah, we don't put something out that we know has issues, because that's we found out even the smallest things. We have a lot of people that use this stuff, and they'll notice. Like, people will notice. So
Yeah, and I'll second that. I was just looking at Wikipedia, and I'm just going to trust their numbers, and they've got that there was a delay of 13 days for the 9.3 release, and that's probably correct. And so that wasn't just, wasted time. There was a lot that was going on during that time. And as Skip said, we want to be correct in what we release, over just being fast. And that doesn't mean that there aren't others out there that could do just as good faster. But we want to be assured that the product that we're releasing is up to our standards, which we have set based on community expectation. And so in order for us to get there and do a job that we are confident in, that's what time it takes. And as we get better at automating things, there is more and more that we're able to do faster, but there's also complexity that also means that we're also testing new things, that we're adding new features. As we bring in new hardware and new supported areas, that adds the complexity for how much that we're testing and what we can do. So that just takes time. As we have more people helping out, maybe that will drop a little bit more. So it's not just a few people doing it. So again, another invite to anybody who wants to help out with this. We'd love to have you.
Yes, we would definitely love to have you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the features, some of the new features? Because I mean, that's kind of the point of having different versions that are released. It's not just security updates and fixes and patches and things like that. There's new stuff. So what's the new stuff in 8.9 and 9.3?
I'll start, I suppose.
Okay.
So really, I want to take a little issue with your description there. Even the enterprise Linux world is extraordinarily conservative with their new versions, new features. So we're talking about 9.3, for example, like it's this new thing, right? And it's really not. The whole point, the idea is to stay as compatible as humanly possible, even across 6 months of development. There are some new things. Like I said, check the release notes. There, for example, Node.js 20, right? If someone's interested in that, Node.js 20 has been introduced. The Redis database has been updated to version 7, I think, in 9.3, which is I think is the latest major upstream version. And we could go on and on. There's several of those things. They're all in all, there are in 9.3. This is just to give you an idea. There are about 3,000 packages in Rocky Linux 9 source packages. Approximately 500 of them were updated in 9.3, and only a handful are going to be notable, like I just mentioned, Redis, Node.js. There's a few more. But really, the idea is incremental and stability is the, yes, it was a lot of packages that were updated at once, but even those updates were not, at the kernel, obviously, big deal. And there's lots of new stuff that's being backported all the time by Red Hat engineers and CentOS Stream contributors. But the idea is that it I hate to say, the whole point is that it stays the same. I don't know if that may not be the answer you like, but that's a lot of sysadmins that do like it.
Right, exactly. I mean, that kind of is, I guess that is the point. So yeah, thank you for that clarity. I appreciate that. Stack, you got some thoughts?
No, that was mostly what I was going to go with, was that there was mostly just a lot of updated packages. It wasn't like there was huge changes to this particular round, at least not that I saw. There were a few improvements that happened in different packages. And one that I understand why they made that change. I don't necessarily like it, but I understand why they made it. I don't know if I would call it an improvement, but it's something. But yeah, otherwise, I think Skip did a great job answering that one.
Awesome. Okay, let's see here. Let's just go down. So how does the upgrade process work for users moving from one older version to 8.9 or 9.3? And I think probably the answer is going to differ if you're going from a one major version to the next major version. That version, that's probably different, right? Than just like doing an upgrade from.
Careful with your wording here.
Yeah.
So going from
Clarify that for us.
8.8 or 8.7 or 8 dot whatever to 8.9, and going from 9.1 or not 2 to 9.3, that's easy, right? DNF update, as long as your repositories are configured the default way, or if your company or if your organization or even your home lab has synchronized repositories, right, to pull that make sure that 9.3 release is pulled in, and run DNF update, and it should work, right? And there's obviously that doesn't work. Come down to chat.rockylinux.org, bugs.rockylinux.org. Let us know about that. Should go smoothly 100% of the time. Now, what you're touching on is now if you're going, and I guess I should rewind for those that don't know, Rocky Linux, just like Red Hat Enterprise Linux, maintains 2 complete versions simultaneously. And in Red Hat's case, it's 3 at the moment. There's a Red Hat 7 still out there getting updates that are 10-year release cycles. A new one is released every 3 years. A new major version, 8, 9 will be 10 next year sometime, I think. And those are done, there's just because you're on 8, if you're happy with 8, stay there. There's no, at the moment, there is no compelling reason to bring you to version 9, right? Unless you have a real want or desire for that. Version 8 of Rocky Linux, just like Red Hat, is supported through 2029. Version 9 will be supported through 2032. If you're thinking of upgrading, you've got some time. You've got some time to think about it. It's 6 years away now. So yeah, we've got you're good for now. It's so many people, I think, make that misconception where it's like, oh gosh, we've got to upgrade, 8.9 to 9 something, right? And that's not true. They're their own thing. Each of one is, you can think of them as completely separate products. They happen to be called Rocky Linux, but 8 and 9 completely different. Upgrading from 8 to 9 is not recommended, quite frankly. It can be, depending on your system, it can go well, or it could be a little dangerous. There's a lot of differences between those two. Like I said, 2 completely different products. One based on much newer package set than the other underlying. So I know there are some companies, some projects. I'm thinking about Leap, Elevate. I know CIQ has something with their Ascender automation. But those are, you can look into those if you're interested in it. But again, my advice to any admin doing that is to tread lightly, be careful, especially if you have third-party software or third-party repositories installed. Be very careful because you can burn yourself doing that. So don't mean to be negative Nancy, but
No. I mean, this is, I mean, I'm glad that you're speaking to this. This is also CIQ's stance, and it's nice to hear, you two more coming from a Rocky Linux perspective of, just the clarity on what we're actually working with here, because it can be kind of confusing for people for sure. Stack, was there something that you wanted to add to what Skip was saying about the different versions?
Yeah, I would just say that there's a lot of home labbers like myself who want to use Rocky because it is stable. We're not enterprise. We're never going to be enterprise. It's our home lab. And so knowing why you want to upgrade from a major version is the first step. For example, if you're using something that relies on a very specific version of PHP, and the version of PHP in Rocky 8 is too old, you might want to be considering moving to Rocky 9. However, there's the aspect where I'm personally at, where one of my primary systems that I've had since 2012 still runs really well, but I can't run Rocky 9 on it because of the x86-64 v2 requirement. And so there's a little bit more consideration that kind of needs to be thought in on this. For a lot of enterprise, they're just going to roll with whatever's latest when their application supports it, and they're going to have a process for how to deal with a mass update. That's not always true for home labbers and small businesses that are just wanting to have something running. So Skip's point of jumping from 8 to 9 needs to have a little bit more thought and understanding for why you want to make that change, and will it be a successful change, especially if you're having to replace the current running system with a new OS, and you don't have the luxury of just saying, well, I'm going to buy a new system, spin it up with a new OS, migrate everything, and shut down the old one. And so, but we're happy to help. Come by, chat with us, say, hey, here's what I've got, and here's what I'd like to do and the reasons for it. And we're happy to have these conversations in community to guide you on the best way of doing those updates. So whether that's small business or even if you're a corporate and you're not sure how to do that, we'd love to have these chats to help you with that process. We're all community based and focused, so being part of that community means you can ask these questions.
You know, that it does actually kind of brings me to another question. I mean, one of the words that you used, Skip, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, was maintained. So there's a 10-year life cycle for each major version of Rocky. So it's
If you
8 and
say
then
so, I think
well, right.
I don't even remember what words I used, but that sounds like me. Yeah.
Okay, well, okay, so the life cycle is 10 years though,
You're
yes?
correct, though. You're absolutely correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so what does that mean in terms of like, what does it mean to still maintain it even though you're not working on it, right? Like eight,
Oh, well, I mean, we're working on
7.
it.
Yeah,
It's,
okay. So are you like in it at
yeah.
rockylinux.org? Like
Yes.
I go get 8.7. There's things that are going to be worked on in the last 6 months.
No. So hang on, back up. Right.
Okay, thank you.
Let's
Thank you.
back up. Let's talk about so major release is 8, for example, or 8 dot, or 9, just 8 or just 9, right? Minor releases, we talk about 8.6, 8.7, 8.8, 8.9 recently. Same 9.1, 9.2, 9.3. RockyLinux.org, our distro, only supports the latest minor release. So if I am on version 9, for example, I will only get, if I would like updates from Rocky Linux, right, which I would, right, 9.3 is the way to go. That's what I'm. The older versions, 9.1, 9.2, are vaulted now. They're kaput. They are no longer, they no longer receive updates. And the nice thing is that if I'm already on 9, which I am, right, it's very easy. Like I said, just, run your DNF update. You'll get 9.3. Honestly, I noticed this even back in the old CentOS days. It looks just like a larger than normal DNF update, right? If I did, a lot of users, I was one of them back in, circa 2005, didn't even realize that I had gone from like CentOS 4.5 to 4.6, right? Didn't know anything about it, right? I just ran update, right? And it worked. And so that's honestly, I mean, obviously, if you're a corporation and you run thousands of machines and you're into this sort of thing, you'll be familiar with the release cycle. But even if you're not, it should be very simple, right? Like you won't even, again, it's seamless. You won't even notice that you're on 9.3 unless you look for it. And that's the way
Okay.
we like it. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm seeing what you mean. So every 6 months there are minor version updates,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
you name them. So it's now it's 9.3, and then in
Yep.
6 months it will be
We're not
9.4
very
and
creative. It's just
9.5,
numbers,
right?
but yep. Same deal.
And so
Yep.
that is what is currently being maintained. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you do your DNF updates, if you are on that version, it will automatically go because it will pull it from the.
It should be noted again. So now we're talking within a release. So let's talk about 9.3 now, right? We already have updates from, there are updates to software. Again, we're a RHEL clone, so they come from RHEL source code. Our updates to software are released weekly or sometimes even more than weekly in Rocky Linux, right? But within a release though, they're tiny. They're tiny updates, relatively speaking, right? They're, OpenSSL has a little itty bitty bug fix. Sometimes sometimes tiny updates are very important. There's a giant hole in OpenSSL needs to be patched, right? But yeah, these are, so obviously running DNF update is a good idea often, anyway, get the latest security fixes. But within a release, generally I say we Red Hat, the philosophy in Red Hat and CentOS Stream is not to break things if at all possible, right? Like to change as little as possible and still be secure and still have the proper bugs fixed and so forth. And so The only way to make, and again, even the big changes, I'm using quotations here, big changes from say 9.2 to 9.3 are not that big in the grand scheme of things, right? Rocky 9.3 still based on a 5.14 kernel, right? Still, it's a newer, it's got a lot of new backports and such from it, but it's, still based on OpenSSL 3. I think it's .0.7, but whatever the current OpenSSL is. So we're not like, we're not moving mountains with these minor releases, right? Even then, and the within a minor release, again, these weekly, little itty bitty updates that happen, they happen sporadically, a couple this week, maybe 5 to 10 the next week, whatever. Those are even tinier changes, right? We're trying, stability is the name of the game. Hopefully that makes sense. And we do this for 10 years, basically.
Yeah, thank you for that. So what are kind of back to this 8.9 and 9.3 that we've just gone through? What challenges did the development team face while working on these versions?
I'll start by saying that I personally have not had that many challenges, at least in my limited work that I do. I know, but I hear stories and I talk to all the other Rocky Linux developers, and yeah, collectively we have some things. I want to touch on something that's a little, it's almost like a tangent, really, which is something for the first time that we came across and we were forced to think about, and it's a good thing because the project is really picking up steam. We're getting lots of people interested. Rocky Linux has special interest groups, SIGs, that are, and they create all kinds of things. I'm involved in what we call the alternative architecture one. We do Raspberry Pi images and images for other little devices that, Red Hat, for example, in a million years would not consider porting to. And we do, there's desktop SIGs that do like live images with, all kinds of desktop environments and so forth. And it's really cool. And one of the challenges that came up is, it's not really, it's a bit of a technical challenge, but really the key is your SIG, which is building packages, right? When does it cut from 9.2 to 9.3? Right? It's a question that we haven't had to face yet, and it was really, I don't want to say it wasn't neat at the time because it's actually an important question, and it was, we don't want to have people confused, but it's something that because there's so many people working on these extras and so forth, that we actually have kind of a schedule to keep now where, we have to say, okay, well, the Rocky 9.3 release candidate is there. We've got to cut the SIGs over, or, perhaps we do it even a little earlier and have them, because they want to be able to build their things against 9.3 even as it's in progress, right? Because there's, there's enough activity now going on that it's actually relevant, that in between time between releases, right? That, week and a half or 13 days, whatever we talked about. There's kind of a, our SIG teams, and we've gotten some interesting ideas on solving that in the back end. But yeah, it was a challenge, but it was kind of cool it was a good challenge to have because it means we have a lot of neat activity and a lot of people who are concerned about it.
Zach, you want to chime in here?
No, that was pretty much kind of where I was first going. Was we had some issues with changes in the tool sets for how we build some of our images, and these are aspects that aren't necessarily Red Hat things that they care about. These are things that are more in Fedora land, and so by the time they made it to us, they work great for Fedora, not so much for us. So we had to make a few changes, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure that KDE has actually been released yet because we ran into issues with it. So there's aspects for some of these additional things that we provide for the community that kind of caused issues this time around.
So that brings up a question. Do you mean that there's extra packages in Rocky Linux than there are in RHEL?
No, the core of Rocky is going to be what matches with RHEL. The SIGs, these extras, are where there's going to be contributions for the community. And so for this example with KDE, we rely on Apple to build a KDE desktop image that people who want that version can have it without going through a bunch of hoops on their own. And so that's an additional that's provided. But those that are looking for just the core Rocky, that's going to be the same as upstream.
Okay. Okay, that's and also congratulations, you guys, for the success of your SIG groups. That's cool. All right, you guys. So as we are coming up to the close of this segment here, again, everyone, thank you for listening. I really want to ask just one last question because it's relevant to you, the listener. And of course, you've got these two amazing men that are on the Rocky Linux team. So how can users contribute to the development of future Rocky versions?
So I'll start off by saying that if you go to rockylinux.org and you drop into the About section and you look at the About Rocky, the community charter, and you really look at what our mission is, we are doing this for the community. As such, we want to engage the community and we want you to be participating in the community as a whole. This isn't something where it's run and dictated by corporations. There are other groups that have corporate control. We don't. You don't get to have a corporation and buy a seat on our project board. You don't get to buy votes because you're a corporation who contributes a whole lot of money. The way that Rocky runs is that it's Rocky members. And how do you become a Rocky member? We have steps for how you do that. And part of that is being a part of the community. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be up, to midnight or 1 a.m. working on things, during a release week. You could just simply lurk, participate in the games that are played, actively have conversations with people, let us know what works for you, whether things are not working. You don't have to be considered a hardcore developer or anything like that to participate within the Rocky community and then become a member, which would give you voting rights to determine the direction of Rocky. We want to foster and encourage that. We want people to have that experience of having a community where we're uplifting not just Rocky, but all of enterprise Linux and contributing back upstream to projects, whether that be something like CentOS, Fedora, or even individual projects. We do a lot of that kind of work, and we want to continue to foster that community. So what I'm saying with that is that anybody can join in and anybody's welcome to participate, and we would love to have you. When you do, you'll find that there are a lot of tasks, especially during release week, where it is simple for you to come in and we have a whole section dedicated for these are tasks anybody can complete. And you can look at it and say, oh, I have this hardware, so this random thing that needs to be tested, I can do that. Or, oh, I have a spare thumb drive, I can throw an ISO onto it and verify it boots. Like there are very simple tasks that anybody can participate with and help out in the testing process. Similarly, in our meetings, we do everything out in the open. Very, very, very little is still held and isn't out there. And that's mostly things like the passwords that we use for our infrastructure. We publish all of our code out there. We publish our docs and our meetings are open. So you find that, oh, hey, Skip was just mentioning the SIG Alt Arch and single board computers. I want to be a part of that. Well, we've got some fantastic work going on within the single board computer community in SIG Alt Arch, and we're hoping to have some really exciting news very soon about that. So you don't have to just be a part of testing or any one group. Anything that catches your attention, you can just come and just participate, see what's going on in the conversations, join one of the meetings, listen in. You can say, hey, I'm interested because I have this device and I'm curious about who else has it, and what is being done on it. There's a lot of easy ways to just participate in the community. And then when you're ready, we would love to have you say, I want to be a member and I want to contribute more. I want to be more involved. And from there, who knows where you want to go? Like, we're happy to foster and encourage that any way we can. So when you kind of ask about how we can contribute, you can start by just being a part of the community. Right now, I don't know when this will air, but we're doing the 12 days of Rockmas, which is 12 days leading up to Rocky's birthday. There are games being played every day. You can simply just participate in those games and still be, in a way, contributing to the Rocky community. And we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Give them
Just
the clip.
all of those details about how to get involved in the community, really beautiful. Skip, what would you like to add to that as a member of the community as well? So thank you.
I'm going to echo that.
Mhm.
Well said, Stack. Very well said. And also, as a practical matter, I think a lot of people out there are not used to contributing to open source projects in this way. They're used to a company model where you get assigned work. You say, okay, you're going to, there's a hierarchy and you're going to go do this because you work for this manager. And that's not how this all works at all. I would say sometimes you have to get creative, but there are enormous ways to contribute to the project if you're interested. And they range from things like hardcore technical work, including packaging, scripting, developing, that sort of thing. Especially if you have a deep understanding of RPM or DNF and various programming languages, please, if you're interested in helping, talk to us. We're interested in talking to you. But you don't need that though in order to contribute. You can. Stack said it's very easy to get on the testing team. Just look at the tasks they do, ask around, and hey, it's some of them tasks are quite simple. You can try them out yourself. There's other things that you can contribute, documentation, artwork even, and this kind of thing. Again, don't wait for the work to come to you. I want to encourage that, right? So if you're interested in artwork for Rocky Linux, we have I think there's 2 people that do most of the graphic design and website work for the Rocky Linux project. They're very busy. They're not going to have time to manage you as well, right? If you think you want to create some Rocky Linux artwork, do it, right? Who cares? And show it off. Send links to it. Say, hey, I created this for Rocky Linux, and here's the SVG source to it. You can use it if you want. Here, this is great. I want to be on the team. Let's go out and do things. We do it because it's fun. We don't do it because we're assigned work by a manager, right? It's not why we're here. And even things that people wouldn't think of as helping really are helping, like hanging out on the chat channels or forums.rockylinux.org, or especially bugs.rockylinux.org. And if you're interested in helping there, whenever someone comes with a problem or a bug or an issue, you can investigate it on your system, right? Again, there's a lot of people who have a bit of Linux knowledge that can help out with this, that are maybe not, hyper specialists in packaging, or, they're not hardcore coders, but they, somebody says they have a problem with a disk drive. Well, they know how to fix that, right? And this is fantastic work. This is helping too, right? So be creative and go out and do it, right? Don't wait for things to come to you, because that's not how open source works. It won't work that way.
Awesome. Well, I'm inspired. I don't know what help I'm going to be, but I can certainly wave a flag and say I'm glad to be part of the community and play in the games. So thank you guys so much. Thank you for your time and all the great work that you guys have been doing. Make sure to go to rockylinux.org. There's an incredible amount of resources. Rocky 8, 9, and 9.3 are out. So go play with them and let us know how it's going. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.